Hello, Coloring Karu. How are you today? I hope you're well. This is the wrong channel I want on the TV. Whoops. Um, yeah. Good morning, Coloring Karu. How are you today? I hope you're what? How are you today? I hope you're well. This is an adult coloring channel, also for teenagers, for depression, anxiety, stress, and all that other stuff that sometimes we can't cope with, but can cope with watching a friendly channel like this and coloring or drawing or just listening. But it's not intended for kids under 13. A lot of channels say 18 and over. It's really 13 and over, and they don't realize it. Wait a few more minutes and then we'll start. One person told me not to send messages no more. I'm like, okay, no problem. All I can do is obey, respect what they want. That's all I can say. Um, Let me see if she still comes up. Because sometimes by getting rid of the message altogether, yeah, so I'm glad they didn't get it because it's way too early for them. It doesn't look like it. Well, Truffle Shuffle, how are you, Brett? Wow. I think I'm awake. I don't know who it is, but a jazz player or singer died from the virus, and music writer died of the virus too. Oh, really? Ah. Oh, you found another girl to watch. Sorry. Just waiting for who else is here? Is this Mildred here as well? Or is it Snookums? You gotta answer either one of you. There's two people here. They'll let me know either way. One time I was going upstairs. Hold on a sec, I will make it 3. What? Goofball. With my friend to go to her house to get something, and then we're going to go to my house, which we lived in the same building. It's Mildred. I knew it was Mildred. And I was about to press her buzzer, and someone scared her, and it scared the living daylights out of me. I went, ah! Okay, I'm going to get the chat going. Hey, my lady, how are you? Okay, I want to get started. I got to do the reading, and then we'll just listen to the good old Bible. Ooh, it goes right there. I need this. I'm alive. That's all I can say. I'm going senile. Guess the train derailed. Oh. Man, poor Jesus calling. Look, got all dribbled on. Okay. What I'm planning on doing, coloring, I'm going to finish my Medusa today. That has to be finished so I can start another one. And I'll work on my other pages I have going. I have several pages going. Wait, what? I finally think I fixed my cat's issues. Oh, really? I hate to put them into a flat. Oh, yeah. Yep. I know someone with their cat, they kept dumping the bowl of food. So she tried a flat plate with dry food, and the cat liked it better. The husband says, okay, let's get them his own plate. And she goes, no, we got plates we can share. Like, we can wash it. He goes, that's true. But we can get her own. And they got her own plate. Own cabinet with her food dishes and bowls. Not technically cat dishes. And the cat loved it that went in there and actually picked a color, even though they can't see color, but I guess she could. Oh boy, really? My dad's cat was like that, or my brother's cat. So I picked it up off the floor and put it in the dish, and he looked at me and says, well, if you don't eat that, you don't get nothing. And she ate it. But I made sure there was no fuzz in the dish. Because one time they were chasing each other. The one rare time they were chasing each other, knocked the food everywhere, and they stopped cold in their tracks and like looking at it. Well, eat it off the floor. And she, like hissed at me. I'm like, okay, let's get started. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us for our trespasses. Forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And thank you for giving the guy the ability to start YouTube, because I met so many great friends on here. And look after Turkey. He is not well at all. He's very ill. Not with the coronavirus, with something else. Amen. My eyes are watering. Okay. Jesus calling. Sorry, April 2nd. I have promised to meet all your needs according to my glorious riches. Your deepest, most constant need is for my peace. I have planted peace in the garden of your heart, where I live, but there are weeds growing there too. Pride, worry, selfishness, unbelief. I am the gardener, and I'm working to rid your heart of those weeds. I do my work in various ways. When you sit quietly with me, I shine the light of my presence directly into your heart. In this heavenly light, peace grows abundantly, and weeds shrivel up. I also send trials into your life. When you trust me in the midst of trouble, peace flourishes and weeds die away. Thank me for troublesome situations. The peace they can produce far outweighs the trial you endure. Philippians chapter 4 verse 19. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 17. I wish they sell the stuff to make biscuits and gravy. Everything but the biscuits, but the gravy part in a can, all you do is heat it up and put it over your biscuits. Because that's what I want. And it's so bad for you. Because last year, my birthday, we went out to breakfast. And I had biscuits and gravy. I'm like, oh, that's the best thing ever. And does it? Yeah, it's your birthday. Get what you want, you know. And then we went home. And then we went out for supper that night, too. I'm like, but this year we can't do nothing. Yeah. Oh, I know. That's so bad for me. And just like the Alfredo. I have Alfredo on my birthday. That's the only time I can have it. It's so bad for you. But it's so good. Okay, Philippians. Philippians chapter 4, verse 19. And this same God who takes care of me will supply all your needs from his glorious riches, which have been given to us in Christ Jesus. Yeah, I know, right? This one family I watch on YouTube, Just Fam, her twins' birthday's the day after mine, and they had to cancel everything. Poor kids. Next is 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. By the way, Jimmy, thank you for the book. I know I must have said it, but I don't remember. Yeah, but when this is all done with, hopefully, probably 6 months, then we can celebrate then. I told my dad I'm celebrating as soon as this is over. Okay, now we're gonna start Leviticus. Of course, chapter 1. Arnie, you're late. Hi, Arnie. There is a place around that is yeah. I know, Brett. Something so good. but you don't get there that often. One year, my birthday, I had my birthday supper. Then the next day, we went out to eat. And my dad said, "How many days did we go out to eat in a row? 5." Oh, he goes, "Oh well." All right, Leviticus chapter 1.
The Book of Leviticus, Chapter 1. Procedures for the burnt offering. The Lord called to Moses from the tabernacle and said to him, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you present an animal as an offering to the Lord, you may take it from your herd of cattle or your flock of sheep and goats. If the animal you present as a burnt offering is from the herd, it must be a male with no defects. Bring it to the entrance of the tabernacle so you may be accepted by the Lord. Lay your hand on the animal's head, and the Lord will accept its death in your place to purify you, making you right with him. Then slaughter the young bull in the Lord's presence, and Aaron's sons, the priests, will present the animal's blood by splattering it against all sides of the altar that stands at the
This should curb your hungriness.
entrance to the tabernacle. Then skin the animal and cut it into pieces. The sons of Aaron the priest will build a wood fire on the altar. They will arrange the pieces of the offering, including the head and fat, on the wood burning on the altar. But the internal organs and the legs must first be washed with water. Then the priest will burn the entire sacrifice
All
on
right.
the altar as a burnt offering. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. If the animal you present as a burnt offering is from the flock, it may be either a sheep or a goat, but it must be a male with no defects. Slaughter the animal on the north side of the altar in the Lord's presence, and Aaron's sons, the priests, will splatter its blood against all sides of the altar. Then cut the animal in pieces, and the priests will arrange the pieces of the offering, including the head and fat, on the wood burning on the altar. But the internal organs and the legs must first be washed with water. Then the priest will burn the entire sacrifice on the altar as a burnt offering. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. If you present a bird as a burnt offering to the Lord, choose either a turtle dove or a young pigeon. The priest will take the bird to the altar, wring off its head, and burn it on the altar. But first he must drain its blood against the side of the altar. The priest must also remove the crop and the feathers and throw them in the ashes on the east side of the altar.
I'm not hungry.
Then, grasping the bird by its wings, the priest will tear the bird open, but without tearing it apart. Then he will burn it as a burnt offering on the wood burning on the altar. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Chapter 2. Procedures for the grain offering. When you present grain as an offering to the Lord, the offering must consist of choice flour. You are to pour olive oil on it, sprinkle it with frankincense, and bring it to Aaron's sons, the priests. The priest will scoop out a handful of the flour moistened with oil, together with all the frankincense, and burn this representative portion on the altar. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering will then be given to Aaron and his sons. This offering will be considered a most holy part of the special gifts presented to the Lord. If your offering is a grain offering baked in an oven, it must be made of choice flour, but without any yeast. It may be presented in the form of thin cakes mixed with olive oil or wafers spread with olive oil. If your grain offering is cooked on a griddle, it must be made of choice flour, mixed with olive oil, but without any yeast. Break it in pieces and pour olive oil on it. It is a grain offering. If your grain offering is prepared in a pan, it must be made of choice flour and olive oil. No matter how a grain offering for the Lord has been prepared, bring it to the priest, who will present it at the altar. The priest will take a representative portion of the grain offering and burn it on the altar. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering will then be given to Aaron and his sons as their food. This offering will be considered a most holy part of the special gifts presented to the Lord. Do not use yeast in preparing any of the grain offerings you present to the Lord, because no yeast or honey may be burned as a special gift presented to the Lord.
What? What happened? Want to make someone mad? Do what I did. Went to Walmart, got food, and accidentally coughed. I'm did it. What? What happened? You can cough and sneeze or whatever, but do it inside your shirt. You just put like this and do it. I've seen people go like this and do it, even before the epidemic. It does that to me too. It says error or something like that. You click it and then it goes back on. Okay, I'm getting back to it.
You may add yeast and honey to an offering of the first crops of your harvest, but these must never be offered on the altar as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Season all your grain offerings with salt to remind you of God's eternal covenant. Never forget to add salt to your grain offerings. If you present a grain offering to the Lord from the first portion of your harvest, bring fresh grain that is coarsely ground and roasted on a fire. Put olive oil on this grain offering and sprinkle it with frankincense. The priest will take a representative portion of the grain moistened with oil, together with all the frankincense, and burn it as a special gift presented to the Lord. Chapter 3. Procedures for the peace offering. If you present an animal from the herd as a peace offering to the Lord, it may be a male or a female, but it must have no defects. Lay your hand on the animal's head and slaughter it at the entrance of the tabernacle. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, will splatter its blood against all sides of the altar. The priest must present part of this peace offering as a special gift to the Lord. This includes all the fat around the internal organs, the 2 kidneys and the fat around them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver. These must be removed with the kidneys, and Aaron's sons will burn them on top of the burnt offering on the wood burning on the altar. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. If you present an animal from the flock as a peace offering to the Lord, it may be a male or a female, but it must have no defects. If you present a sheep...
Now, Brett, do you change your clothes after you come back? I know someone had to take her daughter to the orthodontist because she was getting her braces off early. And they both said that they're going to change their clothes and take a shower. You don't really have to do that. You don't really have to take a shower. I don't even think you have to change your clothes, but it's a good thing to think about. I'm so uncomfortable right now. I was going to say something. Yeah, it won't be a good idea for me to go into a store, but I have to go with my brother shopping next time. I told him already to get my feminine stuff. So, bring some water with me. Yep, there you go. That's what I do. We have no hand sanitizer. We couldn't find it, but we wash our hands a lot. One day I had to stop because my hands are raw.
As your offering, bring it to the Lord, lay your hand on its head, and slaughter it in front of the tabernacle. Aaron's sons will then splatter the sheep's blood against all sides of the altar. The priest must present the fat of this peace offering as a special gift to the Lord. This includes the fat of the broad tail cut off near the backbone, all the fat around the internal organs, the 2 kidneys, and the fat around them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver. These must be removed with the kidneys, and the priest will burn them on the altar. It is a special gift of food presented to the Lord. If you present a goat as your offering, bring it to the Lord, lay your hand on its head, and slaughter it in front of the tabernacle. Aaron's sons will then splatter the goat's blood against all sides of the altar. The priest must present part of this offering as a special gift to the Lord. This includes all the fat around the internal organs, the 2 kidneys and the fat around them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver. These must be removed with the kidneys, and the priest will burn them on the altar. It is a special gift of food, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. All the fat belongs to the Lord. You must never eat any fat or blood. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation, wherever you live. Chapter 4. Procedures for the sin offering. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. This is how you are to deal with those who sin unintentionally by doing anything that violates one of the Lord's commands. If the high priest sins, bringing guilt upon the entire community, he must give a sin offering for the sin he has committed. He must present to the Lord a young bull with no defects. He must bring the bull to the Lord at the entrance of the tabernacle, lay his hand on the bull's head, and slaughter it before the Lord. The high priest will then take some of the bull's blood into the tabernacle, dip his finger in the blood, and sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord in front of the inner curtain of the sanctuary. The priest will then put some of the blood on the horns of the altar for fragrant incense that stands in the Lord's presence inside the tabernacle. He will pour out the rest of the bull's blood at the base of the altar for burnt offerings at the entrance of the tabernacle. Then the priest must remove all the fat of the
This one person my mother knew, my mother thought she was crazy. Like 2 or 3 times a day, she would get a disinfectant wipe and wipe down all of the door handles everywhere. Whatever she thinks the kids touch, she wipes everything down. But never did the phone. My mom says, "You're crazy. You know what the dirtiest thing ever is your telephone." Think about that. Your cell phone's really dirty and you're touching it.
bull to be offered as a sin offering. This includes all the fat around the internal organs, the 2 kidneys.
This woman did it even when you don't really have to do that every single day, or should you? It's like 3 or 4 times a day. She would actually use 1 wipe for each surface. I'm like, she went through. She used to go through a tub of those wipes a day. Oh, good girl, good girl. Oh no, yeah, but at the time, my mom thought she was crazy because she never did the phone. That's one thing my mom did first is wipe down the phone. I know someone keeps those wipes near the phone. She's done using it, she wipes it down.
And the fat around them near the loins and the long lobe of the liver. He must remove these along with the kidneys, just as he does with cattle offered as a peace offering, and burn them on the altar of burnt offerings. But he must take whatever is left of the bull, its hide, meat, head, legs, internal organs, and dung, and carry it away to a place outside the camp that is ceremonially clean, the place where the ashes are dumped. There on the ash heap he will burn it on a wood fire. If the entire Israelite community sins by violating one of the Lord's commands, but the people don't realize it, they are still guilty. When they become aware of their sin, the people must bring a young bull as an offering for their sin and present it before the tabernacle. The elders of the community must then lay their hands on the bull's head and slaughter it before the Lord. The high priest will then take some of the bull's blood into the tabernacle, dip his finger in the blood, and sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord in front of the inner curtain.
When I do the counters and disinfect it with the bleach, dry it off, I get the Lysol spray everything just like that and just leave it to dry.
He will then put some of the blood on the horns of the altar for fragrant incense that
Izzy! Hi, Izzy.
stands in the Lord's presence inside the tabernacle. He will pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar for burnt offerings at the entrance of the tabernacle. Then the priest must remove all the animal's fat and burn it on the altar, just as he does with the bull offered as a sin offering for the high priest. Through this process, the priest will purify the people, making them right with the Lord, and they will be forgiven. Then the priest must take what is left of the bull and carry it outside the camp and burn it there, just as is done with the sin offering for the high priest. This offering is for the sin of the entire congregation of Israel. If one of Israel's leaders sins by violating one of the commands of the Lord his God, but doesn't realize it, he is still guilty. When he becomes aware of his sin, he must bring as his offering a male goat with no defects. He must lay his hand on the goat's head and slaughter it at the place where burnt offerings are slaughtered before the Lord. This is an offering for his sin. Then the priest will dip his finger in the blood of the sin offering and put it on the horns of the altar for burnt offerings. He will pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. Then he must burn all the goat's fat on the altar, just as he does with the peace offering. Through this process, the priest will purify the leader from his sin, making him right with the Lord, and he will be forgiven. If any of the common people sin by violating one of the Lord's commands, but they don't realize it, they are still guilty. When they become aware of their sin, they must bring as an offering for their sin a female goat with no defects. They must lay a hand on the head of the sin offering and slaughter it at the place where burnt offerings are slaughtered. Then the priest will dip his finger in the blood and put it on the horns of the altar for burnt offerings. He will pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. Then he must remove all the goat's fat, just as he does with the fat of the peace offering. He will burn the fat on the altar, and it will be a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Through this process, the priest will purify the people, making them right with the Lord, and they will be forgiven. If the people bring a sheep as their sin offering, it must be a female with no defects. They must lay a hand on the head of the sin offering and slaughter it at the place where burnt offerings are slaughtered. Then the priest will dip his finger in the blood of the sin offering and put it on the horns of the altar for burnt offerings. He will pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. Then he must remove all the sheep's fat, just as he does with the fat of a sheep presented as a peace offering. He will burn the fat on the altar on top of the special gifts presented to the Lord. Through this process, the priest will purify the people from their sin, making them right with the Lord, and they will be forgiven.
It's like you.
Chapter 5. Sins requiring a sin offering. If you are called to testify about something you have seen or that you know about, it is sinful to refuse to testify, and you will be punished for your sin.
Everybody hit that like button, please. Thank you.
Or suppose you unknowingly touch something that is ceremonially unclean, such as the carcass of an unclean animal. When you realize what you have done, you must admit your defilement and your guilt. This is true whether it is a wild animal, a domestic animal, or an animal that scurries along the ground. Or suppose you unknowingly touch something that makes a person unclean. When you realize what you have done, you must admit your guilt. Or suppose you make a foolish vow of any kind, whether its purpose is for good or for bad. When you realize its foolishness, you must admit your guilt. When you become aware of your guilt in any of these ways, you must confess your sin. Then you must bring to the Lord as the penalty for your sin a female from the flock, either a sheep or a goat. This is a sin offering with which the priest will purify you from your sin, making you...
If you had a husband or wife, you had to disinfect them after you touch them. Sorry.
right with the Lord. But if you cannot afford to bring a sheep, you may bring to the Lord 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons as the penalty for your sin. One of the birds will be for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. You must bring them to the priest, who will present the first bird as the sin offering. He will wring its neck
with Lysol.
without severing its head from the body. Then he will sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering against the sides of the altar, and the rest of the blood will be drained out at the base of the altar. This is an offering for sin.
There you go.
The priest
There
will
you
then
go.
prepare the second bird as a burnt offering, following all the procedures that have been prescribed. Through this process, the priest will purify you from your sin, making you right with the Lord, and you will be forgiven. If you cannot afford to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, you may bring 2 quarts of choice flour for your sin offering. Since it is an offering for sin, you must not moisten it with olive oil or put any frankincense on it. Take the flour to the priest, who will scoop out a handful as a representative portion. He will burn it on the altar on top of the special gifts presented to the Lord. It is an offering for sin. Through this process, the priest will purify those who are guilty of any of these sins, making them right with the Lord, and they will be forgiven. The rest of the flour will belong to the priest, just as with the grain offering. Procedures for the guilt offering. Then the Lord said to Moses, if one of you commits a sin by unintentionally defiling the Lord's sacred property, you must bring a guilt offering to the Lord. The offering must be your own ram with no defects, or you may buy one of equal value with silver, as measured by the weight of the sanctuary shekel. You must make restitution for the sacred property you have harmed by paying for the loss, plus an additional 20%. When you give the payment to the priest, he will purify you with the ram sacrificed as a guilt offering, making you right with the Lord, and you will be forgiven. Suppose you sin by violating one of the Lord's commands. Even if you are unaware of what you have done, you are guilty and will be punished for your sin. For a guilt offering, you must bring to the priest your own ram with no defects, or you may buy one of equal value. Through this process, the priest will purify you from your unintentional sin, making you right with the Lord, and you will be forgiven. This is a guilt offering, for you have been guilty of an offense against the Lord. Chapter 6. Sins requiring a guilt offering. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Suppose one of you sins against your associate and is unfaithful to the Lord. Suppose you cheat in a deal involving a security deposit, or you steal or commit fraud, or you find lost property and lie about
Yeah.
it, or you lie while swearing to tell the truth, or you commit any other such sin. If you have sinned in any of these ways, you are guilty. You must give back whatever you stole, or the money you took by extortion, or the security deposit, or the lost property you found, or anything obtained by swearing falsely. You must make restitution by paying the full price plus an additional 20% to the person you have harmed. On the same day, you must present a guilt offering. As a guilt offering to the Lord, you must bring to the priest your own ram with no defects,
Wow.
or you may buy one of equal value. Through this process, the priest will purify you before the Lord, making you right with him, and you will be forgiven for any of these sins you have committed. Further instructions for the burnt offering. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Give Aaron and his sons the following instructions regarding the burnt offering. The burnt offering must be left on top of the altar until the next morning, and the fire on the altar must be kept burning all night."
Yes, it is scary. In Rhode Island, we have 565 cases. I predict by today we'll have 600 plus or 700 plus. See, it's normal for it to go up this much. Where it's at the fast spreading phase of it. And then all of a sudden it's going to slow down. Then it's going to go up again, but then it's going to go down, So I can't wait for the day that she says no new cases, no deaths. We have 10 deaths.
In the morning, after the priest on duty has put on his official linen clothing and linen undergarments, he must clean out the ashes of the burnt offering and put them...
And there's also people that want to test, but the hospital says you have to have all the symptoms. This one woman had all the symptoms. She had to push to get the test. And I don't know if she has it or she just had something that was mocking it. And, well, she didn't have it, but she had all the symptoms.
Beside the altar.
It's weird.
Then he must take off these garments, change back into his regular clothes, and carry the ashes outside the camp to a place that is ceremonially clean. Meanwhile, the fire on the altar must be kept burning. It must never go out. Each morning the priest will add fresh wood to the fire and arrange the burnt offering on it. He will then burn the fat of the peace offerings on it. Remember, the fire must be kept burning on the altar at all times. It must never go out. Further instructions for the grain offering. These are the instructions regarding the grain offering. Aaron's sons must present this offering to the Lord in front of the altar. The priest on duty will take from the grain offering a handful of the choice flour moistened with olive oil, together with all the frankincense. He will burn this representative portion on the altar as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Aaron and his sons may eat the rest of the flour, but it must be baked without yeast and eaten in a sacred place within the courtyard of the tabernacle. Remember, it must never be prepared with yeast. I have given it to the priests as their share of the special gifts presented to me, like the sin offering and the guilt offering. It is most holy. Any of Aaron's male descendants may eat.
At one point, I was getting cold after cold after cold for about 2 years. I had a cold. And the doctor says, now she doesn't have to have the tonsils out. No. My mom says, oh, okay, because I thought she's always sick. Says, well, tell her to eat her vegetables. And she does eat. And I did eat my vegetables. I always eat my vegetables first and then ate the rest of it. And I usually got seconds on vegetables. The doctor didn't believe my mom on that. And we got another doctor and never thought of doing, what was it? Yeah, this other doctor we went to. gave me antibiotics and they got rid of something. He goes, your daughter must have had some kind of virus because the antibiotics got rid of it, or whatever your daughter had, the antibiotics got rid of it. I'm gonna give you another prescription on it just to make sure it's gone because I must have had it for 2 years. No, you know what? That doctor left and this other one came, and since then I didn't get that no more. Who knows what that was? So he doesn't really know what it was. So
from the special gifts presented to the Lord. This is their permanent right from generation to generation. Anyone or anything that touches these offerings will become holy. Procedures for the ordination offering. Then the Lord said to Moses, on the day Aaron and his sons are anointed, they must present to the Lord a grain offering of 2 quarts of choice flour, half to be offered in the morning and half to be offered in the evening. It must be carefully mixed with olive oil and cooked on a griddle. Then slice this grain offering and present it as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. In each generation, the high priest who succeeds Aaron must prepare the same offering. It belongs to the Lord and must be burned up completely. This is a permanent law. All such grain offerings of a priest must be burned up entirely. None of it may be eaten. Further instructions for the sin offering. Then the Lord said to Moses, give Aaron and his sons the following instructions regarding the sin offering. The animal given as an offering for sin is a most holy offering, and it must be slaughtered in the Lord's presence at the place where the burnt offerings are slaughtered. The priest who offers the sacrifice as a sin offering must eat his portion in a sacred place within the courtyard of the tabernacle. Anyone or anything that touches the sacrificial meat will become holy. If any of the sacrificial blood spatters on a person's clothing, the soiled garment must be washed in a sacred place. If a clay pot is used to boil the sacrificial meat, it must then be broken. If a bronze pot is used, it must be scoured and thoroughly rinsed with water. Any male from a priest's family may eat from this offering. It is most holy. But the offering for sin may not be eaten if its blood was brought into the tabernacle as an offering for purification in the holy place. It must be completely burned with fire.
this is gonna be the
Chapter
last
7.
one,
Further
last chapter, because then I'll get dressed, get my breakfast, and then I'll go live right after that, and go live until I feel like getting off.
instructions for the guilt offering. These are the instructions for the guilt offering. It is most holy. The animal sacrificed as a guilt offering must be slaughtered at the place where the burnt offerings are slaughtered, and its blood must be splattered against all sides of the altar. The priest will then offer all its fat on the altar, including the fat of the broad tail, the fat around the internal organs, the 2 kidneys, and the fat around them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver. These are to be removed with the kidneys, and the priests will burn them on the altar as a special gift presented to the Lord. This is the guilt offering. Any male from a priest's family may eat the meat. It must be eaten in a sacred place, for it is most holy. The same instructions apply to both the guilt offering and the sin offering. Both belong to the priest, who uses them to purify someone, making that person right with the Lord. In the case of the burnt offering, the priest may keep the hide of the sacrificed animal. Any grain offering that has been baked in an oven, prepared in a pan, or cooked on a griddle belongs to the priest who presents it. All other grain offerings, whether made of dry flour or flour moistened with olive oil, are to be shared equally among all the priests, the descendants of Aaron. Further instructions for the peace offering. These are the instructions regarding the different kinds of peace offerings that may be presented to the Lord. If you present your peace offering as an expression of thanksgiving,
That's good to do that. You can even go to a playground if it's not like hundreds of people, you know what I mean? Or some people rather say no because you'll be disinfecting everything he touches with letting forget that. Well, yeah, you could go and just hand sanitize his hands, so. And I think your son knows better than to lick the surface, because, you know, there's some kids that do that. And it's like, you don't do that. Um, fresh air is good for them. Yeah, for a walk is fine. I have not been out except for taking out the trash. Oh, and getting the eggs from a neighbor, which I really did not want to do. But she did it right. We did not go in the house. We stood, uh, except for getting the eggs and exchanging the money and stuff like that. We did not go near each other. So we had to go near each other first to get the eggs. And guess what? My dad let me keep the $2 left over. I'm like, yeah, I got $2. I got $2.
The usual animal sacrifice must be accompanied by various kinds of bread made without yeast.
And while I was saying that $2, and I scratched my nose with the dollar bill, and he laughed at me.
Thin cakes mixed with olive oil, wafers spread with oil, and cakes made of choice flour mixed with olive oil. This peace offering of thanksgiving must also be accompanied by loaves of bread made with yeast. One of each kind of bread must be presented as a gift to the Lord. It will then belong to the priest who splatters the blood of the peace offering against the altar. The meat of the peace offering of thanksgiving must be eaten on the same day it is offered. None of it may be saved for the next morning. If you bring an offering to fulfill a vow or as a voluntary offering, the meat must be eaten on the same day the sacrifice is offered. But whatever is left over may be eaten on the second day. Any meat left over until the third day must be completely burned up. If any of the meat from the peace offering is eaten on the third day, the person who presented it will not be accepted by the Lord. You will receive no credit for offering it. By then the meat will be contaminated. If you eat it, you will be punished for your sin. Meat that touches anything ceremonially unclean may not be eaten. It must be completely burned up. The rest of the meat may be eaten, but only by people who are ceremonially clean. If you are ceremonially unclean and you eat meat from a peace offering that was presented to the Lord, you will be cut off from the community. If you touch anything that is unclean, whether it is human defilement or an unclean animal or any other unclean detestable thing, and then eat meat from a peace offering presented to the Lord, you will be cut off from the community. The forbidden blood and fat.
Ugh.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. You must never eat fat, whether from cattle, sheep, or goats. The fat of an animal found dead or torn to pieces by wild animals must never be eaten, though it may be used for any other purpose. Anyone who eats fat from an animal presented as a special gift to the Lord will be cut off from the community. No matter where you live, you must never consume the blood of any bird or animal. Anyone who consumes blood will be cut off from the community." A portion for the priests. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you present a peace offering to the Lord, bring part of it as a gift to the Lord. Present it to the Lord with your own hands as a special gift to the Lord. Bring the fat of the animal together with the breast, and lift up the breast as a special offering to the Lord. Then the priest will burn the fat on the altar, but the breast will belong to Aaron and his descendants. Give the right thigh of your peace offering to the priest as a gift. The right thigh must always be given to the priest who offers the blood and the fat of the...
What they mean is you don't. When we eat a steak, yes, there's some blood in there because it's natural to keep it red. You got to keep some in there. But the other kind of blood that's throughout the body, all animals, when they're butchered, all the blood is drained from their body. Of course, some stay in their muscles, and that's what we eat.
the peace offering. For I have reserved the breast of the special offering and the right thigh of the sacred offering for the priests. It is the permanent right of Aaron and his descendants to share in the peace offerings brought by the people of Israel. This is their right.
Steaks are okay to eat. You goofball.
Rightful share. The special gifts presented to the Lord have been reserved for Aaron and his descendants from the time they were set apart to serve the Lord as priests. On the day they were anointed, the Lord commanded the Israelites to give these portions to the priests as their permanent share from generation to generation.
Do this shuffle, shuffle.
These are the instructions for the burnt offering, the grain offering, the sin offering, and the guilt offering, as well as the ordination offering and the peace offering. The Lord gave these instructions to Moses on Mount Sinai when he commanded the Israelites to present their offerings to the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai.
All done. Oh. I like my little shelf I made for my iPhone. Yep. It's good. Well, I was wondering if my Kindle fits there. Who knows? It might. I think it would. Just put it there and... I'll show you what I mean. Okay. I folded some paper that was too flimsy. So I put these on it, and there's some more on the bottom too. And there's a hole for the charger to go through. And it's taped up there because since the wire goes back, it makes it go lean forward. See, say hi. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, that's outrageous. Well, that's my holder. So maybe someday I can actually make a better one. So. It's okay. This is good. This is good. You can make it, the thicker the material is, it's better. So I'm gonna make the hole in there a little larger. But okay, I'm gonna go get my breakfast, and then I'll come live as soon as I'm done eating it. So love, don't judge. Peace out.